The title of my talk tonight is Relationship Blessings That Are Always Pouring Forth. And a number of you have said, oh, I think I'll come to that. An appealing topic. Um, I've talked for quite a number of weeks about the challenges of relationship as doorways to our deeper understanding. Working with the difficult is always a wonderful inquiry into how it how it works for us that we get caught in suffering. And um, uh, Shinzen Young, as I've said over the weeks, that relationship is the layperson's monastery. It's this place of our practice and working with the difficult in relationship. And the key point, one of the key points, is that we can, in relationship, we can see the mind's tendency to want to fix things out there, to want to fix our relationship partners or fix our politicians or fix something and then we'll be happy. And so the Buddha's great instruction is actually that happiness and freedom from suffering is an inside job. It's internal. And so we cultivate these skills and these practices of guiding ourselves and helping ourselves learn to work with the difficult as a pathway to freedom. Suffering and its release occurring within. So not just suffering, but suffering and release, our whole practice. So after I gave the last talk, I thought, well, okay, that's finished, and then I thought, oh, wait a minute. Relationship isn't just about suffering, and maybe. Maybe that's sort of, the point of our whole practice, too, that sometimes we can kind of get caught in, difficulty, or trying to make life so happy and so perfect that there is no suffering, one or the other. But, how do we work with both? I thought, wait a minute. There needs to be at least one more talk to work with in an inquiry into the blessings of relationship and allowing ourselves actually to cultivate skill at taking in those blessings. Because sometimes the same thing can happen in our just ordinary one-on-one relationships that we get kind of preoccupied either with, oh, it's so perfect and therefore not real, or, oh, it's so terrible and therefore not real. That we can kind of get caught in, whether it's our family of origin or Uncle Max or, Aunt Gertrude or whoever the politician of the day is, that we can really get caught in seeing things in a very one-sided way that actually contributes to ongoing suffering. So tonight I wanted to talk about the blessings and really skill at opening to receive those kinds of blessings. All of us have infinite, really, blessings, have experienced infinite blessings in relationship. We wouldn't be here, and for that matter, we wouldn't even be alive if that were not the case. And sometimes we can kind of lose track of that. We can lose track of the blessings of our relationships. This is from John McCransky. He says, we all are by nature, endowed with qualities of absolute goodness. Purest love, compassion, wisdom, and tranquility. Those radiant qualities are intrinsic to our being. Relationship, he says, helps us remember. Now, lest your minds go, well, not my relationships. They don't help me remember that. to really, so I wanted in the first area, I wanted to invite us to contemplate the relationships that have helped us remember our own goodness. Um, you know, relationships, people who have seen you, seen who you are, seen what matters to you, people who have recognized the goodness, maybe the talents, maybe the skills, but also just the simple goodness, whose eyes have lit up when you entered the room. This is John McCransky again. He says, think, for example, of someone whom you adored to be near when you were a child, a parent or grandparent, a special aunt or uncle, a family friend or teacher, someone it felt wonderful to be with. Why did you like so much to be near that person? Probably because they radiated a wish of love to you, the simple wish for your well-being and happiness through the quality of their presence, their words, their play with you, or simply through their smiling eyes when you came near. Try to remember someone like that from your childhood right now. I'll come back to that in just a minute. As I was doing it, I remembered a couple of people. I wrote a blog essay. It's on my blog now, a essay about my grandma. And when I was a little girl, my parents were very, very busy. And on Sunday afternoons, they were always kind of preoccupied and busy and tired. And I would call up my grandma, who lived about a half a mile away, and say, can I come over? And she would always say yes. And we would go and we would sit under the apple tree in her yard, and she would peel the apples for the apple pie she was making. And I would say, Grandma, talk to me. And she would talk to me. I have absolutely no recollection of what she talked about. But I do remember saying, Grandma, talk to me. As a young woman, as an adult, there was a family. It was such an odd connection. It was a family friend of my father's, or my husband's father. So not even all that connected or all that close. But one of the first people in my adult life who I felt truly, just simply, in a very simple way, saw me with no particular expectation or filter or judgment. He just saw me. And it just felt so good to be near him. So again, here's John. He says, try to remember someone like that from your childhood right now. Hold that person in your mind for a moment. Recall how it felt to be near him or her. And it might even be an animal. What is that cartoon? I was trying to remember when I was coming here. There's a cartoon that's in the Sunday paper of the boy and his dog, and this dog who sees him. And just the sweetness. I love reading it because the two of them are always having these conversations back and forth. And just the sweetness of this dog who actually gets him. So hold that person in your mind for a moment. Recall how it felt to be near him or her. That's what it's like to receive the love that just wishes for your happiness. We like to be near people like that because we have a deep need to receive their unspoken love, their wish for our happiness, to drink up its life-giving goodness. So I wanted to just take a minute and just do a little guided meditation, sort of like the meditation we did at the beginning, that invites you to find someone in your past, some being in your past. It's not possible that there is no one. You would be dead if there were no one. So again, like my the family friend of my husband's father. You know how remote that was. Or my grandma for a couple hours on a Sunday afternoon. Um, Find someone in your past, might be recent past, might be really distant past, um, who really offered that quality of presence or seeing you, or so just bring that into your mind for a moment. And one week we worked with feeling the quality of the difficult. Here I'm going to invite you to feel into how it felt to be with that person. Can you find that in your body? How did your body recognize, the goodness of being with that person? And would you be willing to give that feeling quality your permission to simply be there? Doesn't have to be perfect, just like our meditation. Doesn't have to be complete. That person didn't have to be perfect. But there just were moments when there was a felt sense of that goodness. Finding the feeling quality in your physical body and allowing yourself to enjoy it. And if there are more than one person, to kind of let them assemble, if you will. Maybe they didn't even know each other. But to kind of let them assemble, maybe around you, maybe one or two, or maybe even more than that. But these beings that really saw you and held you in goodness, held you in presence. And then relax and just accept the simple goodness of their wish for your well-being and happiness. Their care for you. The fact that they saw you. So taking time, making space in your mind and heart to receive, accept, and enjoy the power of their wishes, their good wishes for you. A practice you can do anytime. And just notice right now in the body if there's any quality of ease, if there's a quality of struggle. Sometimes we kind of can get into a bit of struggle. It wasn't complete, or then this happened, or then I lost that person, or whatever. And so the invitation there is to really, just as with the meditation that we did earlier, is to really allow yourself to receive the nourishment, letting go of whatever imperfections there might be, at least for the moment of that contemplation. Otherwise, we can kind of get caught in only working with, what's wrong with this picture. So another way I wanted to talk about is being willing to be open to I call sort of even more ordinary blessings, the blessings of like simple contact. We experience them all day, every day. The 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 person who smiles at us in the grocery store, or holds a door for us, or and they're so frequent, and it can be so easy to dismiss those moments um, as unimportant or insignificant. So really want to invite us to also open to include an awareness of those kinds of contexts with, very often with strangers, complete strangers. Never will you see this person ever again in your life. But we can make ourselves available to receive, and again to feel in our bodies the nourishment of these simple human contacts. There's a poem called "At the Corner Store" that I probably have read before. I want to read it to you. He was a new old man behind the counter, skinny and eager. He greeted me like a long-lost daughter, as if we both came from the same world, someplace warmer and more gracious than this cold city. I was thirsty and alone, sick at heart, grief-soiled. And his face lit up as if I were his prodigal daughter returning, coming back to the freezer bins in front of the register, which were still and always filled with the same old cable car ice cream sandwiches and cheap frozen greens. Back to the knobs of beef and packages of hot dogs. These familiar shelves strung with potato chips and corn chips, stacked up beer boxes in immortal Jim Beam. I lumbered to the case and bought my precious bottled water, and he returned my change, beaming, as if I were the bright new buds on the just bursting open cherry trees, as if I were everything beautiful, struggling to grow. And he was blessing me as he handed me my dime over the counter and the plastic tub of red licorice whips. This old man who didn't speak English beamed out love to me in the iron week after my mother's death, so that when I emerged from his store, my whole cockeyed life, what a beautiful failure, glowed gold like a sunset after rain. Frustrated city dogs were yelping in their yards, mad with passion behind their chain-link fences. And in the driveway of a peeling paint house, a woman and a girl danced to contagious reggae. Praise Allah, Jah, the Buddha, Kuan Yin, Jesus, Mary, and even jealous old Jehovah, for eyes, hands of the divine everywhere. As I searched my own memory for these sorts of memories, it was interesting that many of the examples that I thought of had to do with times when I traveled. And I got to thinking, I was like, I wonder if maybe when I travel, I'm just sort of a little more open to new experiences and maybe not just sort of dismissing these ordinary kindnesses the way I might in regular life. Um, but I thought of a couple examples. There was a time when we were traveling in China, and it was kind of back a bit before Westerners were very common in China. We were in a very rural area at a Buddhist temple. And it was quite obvious that we were some of the first Westerners that some of the people there had ever seen. And this one man came up to us, or came up to me actually, and he was just so happy to see me, to see a Westerner, this Western person in his temple. He was kind of beside himself. He was just so delighted to see me. I didn't speak any Chinese. He didn't speak any English, and he just was so exuberant. He had a newspaper in his hand, and he gave it to me. And it was completely, of course, written in Chinese. But the gift of that newspaper was just so precious, that he just wanted me to have something. And I still have the newspaper, you know. It's actually in my meditation altar at home. Because it was just, he just wanted to give me something. And similarly, one time I was in Greece and we had traveled, how you do, you travel a gazillion hours and miles, and we had just gotten off the ferry on one of the islands, and this older woman and her still older mother greeted us and offered us a room in their house, and so we went and got settled in the house. And my then boyfriend left to go out exploring, and I laid down to take a nap. And the woman came in to the room. She just kind of quietly kind of peeked into the room and tiptoed into the room. And I was lying on the bed, and she came over and she lifted my head and placed a pillow under it. These sort of moments where we're just taking in the goodness of strangers. So I wanted to ask you to contemplate, to sit with that for a minute, and to find your own memories of those kinds of just unexpected, stranger-based goodnesses, kindnesses, maybe from a long time ago. Some of those are obviously from quite a long time ago for me. But a time when there was, like the old man behind the counter, but you were available to receive it. Okay? So I'm going to invite you, if you would like to turn to someone near to you. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to contemplate. But in a minute, I'll ring the bell. And if you would like to turn to someone near to you and tell the story. I just told you some stories. And if you don't want to, then you can just kind of feel into it yourself and just enjoy the goodness and the gladness of that. So I'll give you a minute or so to contemplate and also to feel the goodness yourself. Again, I would propose that you wouldn't be here if that were not the case. And so to maybe now, if you want, turn to someone near you and each of you tell a bit of a story. So allow yourself to notice any quality of gladness or goodness that arises in the body-mind as you remember and contemplate just those kinds of blessings that I would propose are absolutely relentless, that just are happening every day, and that the invitation, as in Alison Luterman in the poem, is the invitation is to kind of cultivate a quality of presence and mindfulness and awareness that is open to receive those kinds of blessings. Because otherwise life gets kind of hard and dry and dull. It might even be with people who are very close to us, because again, we can kind of get preoccupied with the things that don't work so well, and cultivating a quality of just appreciation, just shifting the focus a little bit, cultivating a quality of gratitude and appreciation for what is given, what is offered. Sometimes we can get so preoccupied with how, our relatives or our partners are not meeting expectations that we actually overlook the incredible goodness. I just think about the hours my mother spent making these amazing little doll clothes for me, and just what a sweetness that was. Another way to contemplate the goodness of relationship is to contemplate our spiritual benefactors, the beings whose books you read or who inspire, whose lives inspire. I think of how inspired I was by Nelson Mandela, and I just couldn't read enough about him and by him and about his life, just because I just thought it was just so amazing. Like, how did you do that? So to contemplate, who are the teachers, who bring you here, whose books you've read or talks you've listened to online, or the retreats that you've gone to, that have really blessed you in that way. And in the sense of, when we read some Dharma, I know you've had the experience or you wouldn't be in this room, where you read it and you go, yeah. And that's just a place. It isn't like somebody's putting something into you. It's that somebody is shining a light on some awareness that you have that you had forgotten. That place where you go, yeah. So, even from afar, or even from teachers who are no longer in physical form, that we can really receive that kind of light and brilliance and blessing, which is really just opening up our own hearts and minds to that goodness that John McCransky was talking about. We are by nature. By nature, he says, we all are by nature, endowed with qualities of absolute goodness, purest love, compassion, wisdom, and tranquility. These radiant qualities are intrinsic to our being, and relationships help us remember. So when we read or listen to a Dharma talk and we go, yeah, we want to attribute it to whoever's, voice it is, or, there's something about that person. But that's not really what's happening. What's happening is that it's just like this, that it's ringing, it's resonating internally in you, and it's waking something up that's just there. So don't get confused and start attributing it out there someplace. That it's that it's just resonating and waking you up. And in similar ways, I know we have a lot of groups in our community, groups of spiritual friends where we come together and maybe we read together or meditate together or inquire together into some of the teachings, or you listen online, or you attend a class online, and really kind of have a group of spiritual friends who together we remind each other and help each other wake up, or who walk with us through a difficult moment or a difficult time, um, and really help us remember, Uh, Notice in the meditation that we did at the very beginning, there wasn't anything that I was putting into you, that it was you sort of relaxing and just that willingness to notice the ease that's already present, that's already there, and letting go of the cluttered mind that says really it should be better, it should be different, it shouldn't be coming in this particular form, it should be coming in that particular form. But just letting those ideas go and allowing it to be what it is and allowing yourself to receive it. So just remembering that those blessings are always there. Can I look for them? Can I receive them when they show up? Um, so who are the spiritual friends who brought you to the Dhamma? Who maybe invited you here? Who continue to support and guide you? Don't we all need a little help from our friends? And even if it's just by physical support, people who take care of our kids, or take care of something so we can do a day-long retreat, or you just help us out in that way. And I wanted to close with another poem, and it's a poem of Billy Collins, and he's speaking of his mother. But I would encourage you, as you listen, to maybe not limit it just to our mothers. We certainly can include our mothers in it. I don't mean that our mothers are not included, but to really kind of maybe think of it more broadly in terms of all of those beings who've given us and continue to give us and will give us on the way home. On the way home, someone will pause and let you into the line of traffic, And to really allow ourselves to say thank you, to really receive and appreciate that goodness. So it doesn't have to be the kind of elaborate goodness that, or courageous or heroic goodness that our mothers have given us. But this is about his mother. And the title of the poem is The Lanyard. And in typical Billy Collins form, he starts like this. The other day I was ricocheting slowly off the blue walls of this room, moving as if underwater from typewriter to piano, from bookshelf to an envelope lying on the floor, when I found myself in the L section of the dictionary, where my eyes fell upon the word lanyard. No cookie nibbled by a French novelist could send one into the past more suddenly. A past where I sat at a workbench at a camp by a deep Adirondack lake, learning how to braid long, thin plastic strips into a lanyard, a gift for my mother. I had never seen anyone use a lanyard or wear one, if that's what you did with them. But that did not keep me from crossing strand over strand again and again until I had made a boxy red and white lanyard for my mother. She gave me life and milk from her breasts, and I gave her a lanyard. She nursed me in many a sick room, lifted spoons of medicine to my lips, laid cold face cloths on my forehead, and then led me out into the airy light and taught me to walk and swim, and I, in turn, presented her with a lanyard. Here are thousands of meals, she said, and here's clothing and a good education. And here is your lanyard, I replied, which I made with a little help from a counselor. Here is a breathing body and a beating heart, strong legs, bones, and teeth, and 2 clear eyes to read the world, she whispered. And here, I said, is the lanyard I made at camp. And here, I wish to say to her now, is a smaller gift, not the worn truth that you can never repay your mother, but the rueful admission that when she took the 2-tone lanyard from my hand, I was as sure as a boy could be that this useless, worthless thing I wove out of boredom would be enough to make us even. So may we appreciate the blessings and know we, in a way, we can never be even. You know, may we appreciate the blessings. So thank you.